Hi, welcome. This continues the reading of Walking a Rainbow by me, Michael Shearer, about a trip along the Camino de Santiago with my son, who was 9 at the time. We're up to chapter 21, which is called Carrion up the Camino. And we have stayed overnight in Flomista, and this is the morning. A threesome once more. Claudio joined us for a long walk down a straight road out of Flomista through increasingly arid landscape. Where it was irrigated, barley grew. Where it wasn't, even the thistles were dried flowers on stalks like withered candlesticks. We took a break at the Hermitage of San Miguel, a quiet green spot in a dry world. The simple rectangular building stood askew amid an oasis of willows. Lizards posed and scuttled on its creamy stone walls. Away from the building, the hermit's water supply still trickled coldly over stones at the edge of a baking field. Off-road soon after, down a long, straight dirt track between endless sugar beet. We passed a sign for a village called Revenge of the Fields. Then the path grew more narrow and tracked a stream until returning to the road at Villa Mentero. An official picnic site by the roadside here, a pair of pilgrims on horseback had paused. One of the many motorists brought us a gift of melon while we were resting. Further on, at Belalcázar de Sirga, Claudio insisted that we stop at the restaurant on the main square, El Maison de Sirga. It was closed, so we knocked at its large wooden door. It was opened by a sturdy, middle-aged man who had the comfortable confidence of the financially secure. Here was a man who had found his niche and was content with it. He ushered us in. The room spoke of nature's bounty. The walls were hung with fruit and grain, and medieval decorations. A huge refectory table, sturdy like its owner, filled the length of the room beneath heavy old beams. It looked as if it had been welcoming pilgrims for centuries. Everything was neat and put in its place with a domestic artist's eye for fitting harmony. Pablo Payo called to the kitchen for soup and wine. He sat comfortably at his ease. He had plainly settled down snugly in himself and was content with who he was. Yet he clearly had enormous respect for pilgrims such as ourselves. This is uncommon in people with his sort of attitude. There is a type of person for whom it is unquestionably obvious that the purpose of life is to achieve a quiet contentment, to be secure and safe. Usually they find seekers, immature people who have not found their place, internal and external, wherein to dwell and be happy. What is the point of chucking things up, risking what you've already got, and going herring around the world looking for you know not what? The sport of ageing adolescence. Why rock the boat? Just strive to make the boat more comfy. Perhaps a potted jasmine in that corner, and that pretty little mirror from the antique shop in Long Melford just over there. Just the thing. Let's get the place just so. Make a hideaway, a nest. Never mind tempting Jesus with turning stones into bread, or to be master of all he surveyed. Just offer him a thatched cottage in the country, central heating, furnishings of his choice, a regular, more than adequate income, and a cosy wife. That'll get him. But Pablo wasn't like that. He had settled down, but lacked the disdain for the restless seeker, a rare mix. He chatted to Claudio with the inevitable questions about Kes until the meal arrived. Delicious garlic soup with little bits of bacon, fresh bread, peaches and strong red wine in portly brown jugs. He presented Kes with a chocolate-coloured brown cup with the name of the restaurant on it as a memento, and stamped our cards before bidding us farewell. He waved genially goodbye, having helped another few on their way. The meal was free for pilgrims. Villa Cerca means something like town of the tow rope. Thereafter, yet another long, hot road, straight enough to be Roman. We walked on towards the immense white grain silos of Carrion. At the church of Santa Maria in Carrion, we were greeted by the priest and his tall sister, who reminded me of Virginia Woolf, and we were shown into the back garden, an idyllic place with a round table beneath a fruit tree amid rows of massive vegetables. Cats skunked among the onions. At the table were seated two pilgrims, one of whom was a huge muscular man resembling Popeye's enemy, Bluto. They both gazed forlornly at a pair of enormous alpine boots on the table before them. "They are killing me," explained the large, thickly black-bearded man. "I cannot understand it. I've walked many times in the mountains with these boots, but here nothing but pain and blisters." "Well, they're too heavy and stiff for the roads," I suggested. "Very hard on the feet." "It is true," he said mournfully. He was plainly taking it badly. Such a strong man. He was not used to having his body let him down. He picked up a bottle of red wine and swigged about a third of it with gusto. He made a massive sandwich of cheese and very red tomatoes, dipped it in olive oil and ate heartily. He motioned for us to help ourselves. Kes made himself a sandwich of sardines, chocolate spread and Tabasco sauce. "Would you like me to get you some paraffin for your sandwich, Kes?" "Oh, no, thanks." "Or a touch of goat dung?" "Well, if it's no trouble." "I'll see what I can do." "I will get more boots in Leon," interrupted Bluto miserably. "It's a long way to Leon." He took another hefty swig. "I will see how it walks," he said. Kes had taken some snippets of sardine and was trying to feed the cats. They were semi-feral and very wary. Often cats and dogs here are not fed, but left to fend for themselves on mice and scraps they can find. Eventually a kitten snatched some fish from his hand and scampered off into the vegetables to eat in safety. Virginia Woolf thought this generosity of Kes charming and brought her brother out to sea. Her melancholy look suggested that she would have liked a child like Kes, but it was too late now. Kes was lying on the earth, one open hand full of fish stretching into the cabbages. Kes liked cats. We had 4 at home. The eldest had had trouble with her last litter. Kes and his sister had sat up all night while she was in labour. Most cats will not allow humans anywhere near them while giving birth. The runt of the brood had died in the early hours in his capped hands. In the evening, Kez and I went into a bar and bumped into the neurotic young man with the twitch, who had queued with us in Fromista. In his 20s maybe, with a scrubby dark beard and one of those blemished faces which look as if they have been eroded by water in a ditch somewhere. He was short, emaciated and slightly bandy. His twitch was incessant, a jerk of the head to the side every few seconds. He wanted to know our names. "Michael," I said. "No, Michael," he replied, shaking his head. "Papa Noel." Kez was more difficult. Our new friend spoke no English, so we were reduced to mime and drawings. I drew a picture of a kestrel, wrote the word, and crossed out the last 4 letters and gestured at Kez. In case you're wondering, Kez was born in Whipps Cross Hospital, which is on the edge of Epping Forest. Things got a bit heavy while he was being born, so I stepped out for a breath of fresh air. Outside, a kestrel was hovering over the hospital. Kestrels don't often hover over buildings. When I went back in, Kez had found the right buttons to press and had got himself born. It was obvious he was a Kez. When I suggested the name to his mother, she readily agreed. When I asked our Spanish friend his name, he got up and stood in the middle of the bar and mimed it. He cupped both his hands and rolled them, as if over a couple of oranges, on his chest. "Titania," I suggested. He shook his head and repeated the gesture more vigorously. "Melanie," said Kez. "Buster," I tried. "Chester." These were plainly wrong. He crouched slightly with his legs apart and knees bent and made a gesture as if throwing something away from his loins. Then he stood up straight, gave us a double thumbs up and rocked an invisible child in his arms. "Jim," said Kez mysteriously. He gave up on us and wrote it down. Eugenio. "Ah, I see, it comes from the Greek," I explained to Kez. "It means good birth. Eugene in English." He approved of this and twitched a cracked smile, while his restless eyes fearfully checked all round him for some unknown threat. If he hadn't already had a nervous breakdown, he was plainly on the verge of one. We walked together back to the church of Santa Maria. It was early evening now, and the refuge was crowded. There were bunks. Claudio had bagged one downstairs, but we had omitted to stake our claim, and they were all full. 2-inch thick foam mattresses covered the entire floor upstairs, each butted up against its neighbour. There was no space between them. I had Kez on one side and a beautiful French girl on the other. She was designed on Ferrari lines, aquiline facial features, exquisite streamlining everywhere else. As I lay on my back, wide awake, I could feel the suffusion of warmth from her nearby body. My randiness was oppressive. I couldn't think of anything else. It took a long time to fall asleep. I awoke in the middle of the night to find her draped over me. Her slender arm crossed my chest. Her hand lay hot on my naked shoulder. One of her legs overlay mine, her upper thigh in my lap. I gently laid my arm across her shoulders. She half woke with a start and squirmed around with her back to me. As I instinctively turned on my side towards her, she executed an exotic jackknife karate blow with her bum, straight in my groin. A sudden resolution in favour of purity and celibacy came upon me. When I awoke in the morning, only her perfume remained.